Hello everyone and welcome back to MORGBORG Tech. Welcome to this month's phone recap where I show you all of the phones I have gotten in the past month. These here, in addition to that, some phones that I was able to get working, so phone updates, and I'll be starting up and shutting down all of these and talking about them a little bit. So let's get started here. First up is an LG VX3200 on Altel. I want to say most of this month's phones cost me about $4 each. And they mostly came from the same seller. Something else to note about a lot of these is when I first got them, they were filthy. Hopefully I've done a pretty good job of cleaning them up. Moving on, here is a Sanyo Katana LX on Sprint. This was one of the first phones I got this month. Pretty beat up, as you can tell. Next up here is my first Canadian phone. I actually got a bunch this month. This is a Samsung SGH X507 on Rogers. Now with this phone here, as you can tell, it turns on, but when I first got it, I couldn't turn it on fully because I didn't have a SIM card for it. So a few days after this phone arrived, I got the SIM card for it. Next up here is a Samsung SPH M500 on Bell. That is a Canadian carrier. A bunch of these Canadian phones are on Bell, by the way. I want to say that Bell is pretty much the Canadian version of Sprint because they have a lot of the same phones. Moving on, here is LG 285 on Telus. This phone did not come with a battery, even though I had this one here lying around for years, actually. Now I'm going to need to steal a battery from this phone here to power on the next one. And so here's the next phone here. This is the Samsung SPH A640 on Virgin Mobile Canada, which is different from US Virgin Mobile. You'll be able to tell right away the startup sounds are much different between the two. Next up here is the Sanyo SCP-7300 on Bell. Now this phone was also pretty beat up. I want to say I paid about $8 for this one, and there's a phone number on the back cover on it. I tried really hard to get that off, but there's still a little bit of scarring from that, if you know what I mean. It's pretty much stained on the plastic. Next up here is the LG UX300 on US Cellular. I got this phone here along with this phone and this phone. Here's the next phone. This is the Samsung SPH A580 on Bell. This one is actually in pretty nice shape here. Only a few scuffs on it. Next up, here's a pretty beat up phone. This is a Samsung SCH A870 on Telus. You can tell the hinge is pretty worn out because it just does that, and the back cover doesn't really stay in place. Thankfully, this one cost me only about $4, so it wasn't too expensive. The key sounds on this phone are pretty loud though. Next up here is the Kyocera Energy on Telus. This one was pretty dirty, actually a bunch of dirt around here that I cleaned up pretty nicely. This is probably the most basic phone I've gotten this month, maybe along with that LG 285 right there. And moving on, here's the last of the new additions. This is an LG UX390 on US Cellular. This one was also pretty dirty, actually quite sticky as well. I tried my best to clean this one up, although I couldn't quite get it because this here is really sticky, but I got rid of a lot of the dirt on this thing. And so unfortunately, that's as loud as this speaker gets. It does not get any louder than that. Alright, so I'll go ahead and switch these around and show you the updates. And so here are the updates. Starting with this here, this is the CR108, probably the weirdest and most basic phone I have in my collection. I got this in my first phone lot, and this here just takes a Nokia battery. So I pulled this from my Nokia 6030. And what I actually found out about this phone is that it is made by a company called Cell Runners Distribution, which I'm pretty sure this is some kind of government phone. made to look like a Nokia replica. And just a little warning, and also why I put this first, is this possibly has the loudest and the most annoying startup sound I've ever heard on a phone. So here goes. So it's just that same animation that repeats, is really loud. So hopefully after listening to that, you still want to watch this video because there's some good phones here to show you. So this is my BlackBerry Pearl 8100 on AT&T. I've had this one for a long time. I want to say since either August or September 2016, so it is one of my original phones in the collection. And yeah, so it's nice to have this thing up and running. Moving on, here is my first ZTE Z222. If you don't know, I actually got one of these from a phone lot last year, but this one here I actually got from the recycling center back when I was getting phones there, roughly 1.5 years ago. I started getting phones there back in 2019. And yeah, this one doesn't have a back cover. I just pulled the battery from the other ZTE Z222, and this one works perfectly, just like the other one. I'm probably going to end up selling this one at some point. And here's the next phone here. I also got this from my first phone lot. This is a Nokia 3585i on US Cellular with what appears to be some kind of custom faceplate. I took the battery from one of my Nokia 6010s that I got last year and put it in here. Moving on, here is my Samsung SGH T339 on T-Mobile. This one would have actually been included in my previous recap, even though I actually forgot to include it, so I'm including it in this month's recap. The battery for this one, as you can tell, is a little bloated, but it's not too bad. As long as it doesn't get any worse, then I can keep using it. And this just takes a standard Samsung proprietary charger from the late 2000s right there. Here is another phone from my first lot. This is my Kyocera KX1 Soho on US Cellular. This uses the battery from my Kyocera Energy that I got recently. That happens to be featured in this video. And I'm going to need this battery for the next phone here. This one also came from my first phone lot. This is a Kyocera KX9 Milan on US Cellular, and it uses the same battery as the Kyocera Energy, of course. Next up here, and this also came from my first phone lot, is my Kyocera Domino on Cricket. I actually took the battery from a Kyocera Domino that I got last year in my second phone lot, and for some reason that Kyocera Domino happens to have problems now, but the battery I put into here, I think the battery's bad because it does not hold a charge very well, so when I turn this phone on, it is probably going to have a low battery. And I'm not sure if there's like some sort of screen damage or water damage, but the screen looks weird. And also notice these little marks here. And so next up here are 4 of the 9 Sanyo Incognitos that I got from my second phone lot last year. And these 4 are the only ones that work out of them, because I took the battery from my Sanyo Katana LX. I'm only going to show you one of them. The other 5 have problems, by the way, so I have removed them from my phone collection. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I will, of course, have some more phones coming up for March, and you'll likely see that next Sunday. And yeah, peace.